Hello and welcome to the North American Guitar Showroom in London, and this is a really special talking guitar session. I have got not only a legend sat right here, but also a very dear friend of mine, Mr. David Eringa.
Lovely to be here.
Mate, how are you?
Good, really good.
So just for anybody that doesn't know, Dave and I know each other because Dave produced my second album, an album called Tales of Flying and Falling, which went on to, we got Record of the Week on Radio 2, and we just had a lot of fun.
And it was a lovely, lovely record.
It was a lovely record. So tell us about you, about where it all sort of began, producing.
My journey started, I just always wanted to do this job. That was the thing that I was very, very passionate about from the age of about 12. I was very focused on being a record producer, not a rock star, but the guy behind the desk with all the knobs, you know. That always just really appealed to me. So when I left school, I had to get a job just to pay for all the stamps, for all the letters to all the studios, because there was tons of studios then. I wrote 200 applications to every studio in the country, and got really lucky. Got in at a studio called Power Plant in Willesden, London, run by an amazing producer called Robin Miller, who had done Sade and Fine Young Cannibals and all these guys in the 80s. And he was the most amazing boss. He every new tape up was a potential producer to him, and he would sit down with you and say, like, how do you see your career going? You know, instead of seeing you as just someone to make the tea, and you know, and be quiet. And every time there was downtime in the studio, he wanted us in there, getting in friends' bands and stuff like that, and learning our art, which was just an amazing way to start a career, you know. And he put very high standards on you for your work with clients, kind of thing. So if you were anything less than brilliant, then you would get balled out. But
would you critique it?
Yeah, and then when you did work, you know, with your mates' bands and stuff like that, he'd sit and listen to it, and he was blind, so he had the most incredible ears, and he would literally be listening to a mixer down and say, that 1176 on the vocal should have been a 165, and he was right every time.
Wow!
Right every time. He was an incredible mentor at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky that a little punk band from Wales came in.
That's my next question.
To do their first little indie single, and that was the Manic Street Preachers, and we just hit it off because they were outsiders. This was a time of Baggy and the Summer of Love, and they were writing caustic 2.5 minute punk rants about politics and just angry about everything, you know. And it wasn't that I was that, but I was like a bit of a metal kid. And so I was in this cool studio where there was all this kind of soul and like groovy stuff being done. It was great and all of that. But I'm there with long hair and a Kiss t-shirt, like a really, like just, you know, just like not sussing out that was maybe not the look that I should be presenting, kind of thing. And I think we just hit it off because we were both outsiders. Right, okay. They just sort of liked the fact that I was that. I suppose didn't give a sort of about it, and so I played a little bit of keyboards on that little single, which was called Motown Junk, which was just an amazing debut single. And when I say a little bit of keyboards, I mean it was a D chord on that.
Yeah, but you always said this to me. But it
really was.
Oh no, I can't play. And you'd be like,
no, but it really was a D chord. But that was my first credit. It said, you know, assistant engineer and Hammond, Dave Eringa.
Best D chord ever.
It was the best D chord ever because it was an amazing song. And you know, and that was like, this was before the indie wars were won in the early 90s. So that was 96 in the charts, which was just like, oh my God, like an indie band is in the top 100. You know, that was a big deal back then, you know. And the Enemy were writing about them. And then they came back and they did You Love Us, which was like the indie version. And I played Hammond on that again. I think it might have been 2 or 3 chords on that one, but you know. And we you know, and we remained friends. They used to send us postcards from tour and stuff like that. It was lovely. And so then they got the big deal with Sony, and of course they did the first record with a brilliant producer called Steve Brown, who had done The Cult and Wham. So he'd done She Sells Sanctuary, which, you know, the band loved. And they were very kind. They got me in to do the keyboards I could do, like, because I could, like Motorcycle Emptiness, I couldn't do it. You know, it's just a little bit too posh for me, kind of thing. But I'm quite good at aggressive Hammond.
Yeah.
A lot of piano players don't play Hammond hard enough kind of thing. You got to hit it. And so I did what I could do on that record. So that stayed in with them. And then when it came to their second album, I'd kind of lied to them about how much engineering I was doing at the studio. And I guess because the sonic landscape had changed post Nevermind.
Mm-hmm.
And Generation Terrorist was quite a sort of slick FM sounding record, and I think they wanted something a little bit different, and maybe a producer they could mould more to their to their vision. And so they asked me to produce their second album when I was 21.
Amazing.
Which at the time I was just too stupid to be daunted by. I was just like, yeah, that's just probably how it happens. Nice, let's do that. And I think it was just that kind of not being a bit too thick to feel the pressure. Just thinking, let's go and make some music. That'd be brilliant. And so that record was a top 10 record, and then I was a producer then.
And they've gone on Idlewild, and now you've just done Wilko. And
Wilko Johnson, Roger Daultrey, The Who.
It's just amazing.
No, it's a lucky beginning, which hopefully you follow up with a bit of talent and a bit of dedication, and
But your approach to production is obviously you have such an old school way of doing things. The pre-prod. I remember the pre-prod days. And you go in. You always really strict on pre-prod.
It's very important. Because it
in.
saves you so much money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's. People think, we can cut corners, we can, but that's the thing that's going to save you the money. I'm going to work on the songs so that they're all ready, so that all the parts, so you're really listening to how the bass drum's interacting with the bass guitar. The arrangement, is it as tight as it can possibly be? Is the tempo right? Is all of that stuff. You don't want to be, ideally, you don't want to be deciding that when you're doing your first takes in the studio. You want everything, for at least the majority of it. Obviously, it's really nice to have songs that just evolve in the studio and stuff like that, for there
normally
to be...
on a timeline, we've got a week or 2 weeks to get this all done. So
you want most of it to be like, and then to allow a little bit for chaos theory as well. It's just to have the balance,
I used to always love how when you would approach something, you would have, you'd always make me write a track list. And I would suggest, you would say, right, this is what I think the referencing.
Yes,
we would reference a whole bunch of songs,
a
whole bunch of bands, and then we kind of like whittle that down into...
and then the song becomes itself. But I mean, certainly in Manic's land, we always have quite a strict set of references right at the beginning, and then the song evolves and it takes its own way. But it gives you a focus at the beginning to say, right, well, at least at the beginning we're going to go for the drums to be like this, and we're going to approach the guitars like this, and then gradually the song tells you what it wants to be. So it might end up nothing like that at all, and that's totally fine. But you need a place to start. It's like,
and so tell us about your setup, because that was the thing again. Sorry to be pulling on all of my references, but when we set up at Rockfield, the setup was such a major part. It was like there was always a 2-day
again,
setup.
it's a super time saver, really, to get.
But you have it also. You have all of you have the amps all set up, the bass rig, the drums all tuned and done in one room. But then that is it. It is set, and it's set for the whole time period, right?
Yeah. Again, you don't want to be too stick in the mud and fixed, But ideally, if you get all the technical stuff out of the way, and that all of your mics are in phase, and that everything's working, and it's all set, that means that when you're in the creative process, when you're actually recording the song, if you want to do this, then it's just there straight away. It's like, should we try 12 string? It's there because the acoustic mic's ready to go. It's just push up the fader and off we go. And same with all the guitars, all the amps. We want to try the twin. If it's like 2 a.m, and you sort of like, that means getting out a load of mics and using these channels and stopping doing that, and you might think maybe that's not no. But if it's just set up, then it's like there's the twin. Let's try that. It's great.
That leads perfectly into your very famous setups. Just talk us through how you set up the electrics and how you get what.
Well, I'm a big fan of multi-amp setups, so that you're not leaning too hard on one amp to give you everything. So for instance, if you've got like a semi-distorted sound where you need lots of clarity, you might have one amp set, in a really simple example, you might have just one amp set quite clean and one amp set quite dirty. and then blend the two to get the clarity kind of thing. So quite often I use 3. James from Manic's absolutely bans me from 3.
Really?
He hates 3, like for some reason.
1 or 2? Or
2 is fine with, but he can't get his head around the third amp. So it's not always 3. Of course, I think a lot of guitar players quite enjoy the idea.
I remember Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Charlie was
and there is an element of that to it, because that then feeds into the performance.
Yeah.
If the guitar player's just buzzing because it's just so loud,
yeah.
Did we need the third amp? Maybe not. But if that's making him really excited and he's going to dig into the performance all the more, and he's just grinning the whole time he's doing it, that's going to come out on the record, So there is an element of that, but I do believe in the sonics of it.
Yeah.
But technically, it's incredibly important to remember phase through this process, I think, because one mic on one amp can sound a lot bigger than 6 mics on 3 amps if the phase isn't right, like a lot bigger, But you have to think about the distance from the source. So if the speaker is here and you have a dynamic mic here, like the typical starting point for a recording setup. If you've got a ribbon mic here, that might sound really lovely because it's like got a bigger picture of the amp. There's enough time for the waveform to develop. The bottom end is bigger. There's more rich mids. It hasn't quite got the aggression of this one, but this has got lots of lovely tone. But then you put the two in together, they don't work at all. You'll hear either the top end disappear or the bottom end disappear because the phase relationship is off. So and that's because the amount of time it takes the signal to get from this speaker to here is shorter than the amount of time that it takes to get from this speaker to here, because this is a foot away and this is only an inch away. So of course, if you think about your physics, with waveforms joining together, if they're like that, then they become louder, and if they're like that, then they cancel out. So you imagine that across the frequency range of an entire guitar, all of these notching things, some adding together and making lumps, and others sucking out and making sucky sounds. That's not a position you want to be in. So what I do is very carefully, I suppose it's time the microphones. So a really quick way to do it is just to plug in the guitar. So you know that that you get when you plug in your guitar. And record that on 2 tracks. So here's your 57, here's your Roy amp. Say that's a typical 2 mics that you might use to record a guitar. And then you're on 1 track and the 2nd track, and you just plug in the guitar while you're recording it, and it makes a really spiky thing. And then you can just see on the 1st track it's there, and on the 2nd track it's there. So now all you need to do is put a little delay plug in on this one, the amount of samples that it is. So you just zoom right in, and you see, right, this one's like 32 samples behind. So you put a little delay on that, move it 32 samples. Now it's in, and now they join together. So now you've got bright and you've got body, and you tend not to use any EQ then, because you're using the mics to do the EQ.
Amazing.
So then you multiply that through 3 amps. It gets complicated because this speaker cabinet, the speakers might be loaded a little bit further back, so you can't make any assumptions. So then you have to do the math.
It is the tone that you got, well, you get consistently is just incredible. The guitar sounds. I remember I do actually remember being with Charlie, and it was so loud that I think my heart was wobbling inside.
Yeah, I mean it can get like that, obviously. I mean, it's if you've got like one of the amps that we were using on that session was a Marshall 100 watt 1975 Super Lead, and it doesn't have a master volume. So if you want it to distort, you just got to turn it up, And there, the sound of the power amp valves distorting is different to the sound of the preamp valves distorting. So there's 3 places where your tone is built in an electric guitar: is the preamp, the power amp, and the speakers. So that's why in a classic 70s Marshall 4x12, they're all 25 watt cones, or sometimes 30 watt cones. And in a classic modern metal setup, they'll all be 100 watt speakers. So they're leaning far less on speaker distortion for metal, because the tone is already incredibly distorted at the preamp stage. Whereas a classic rock sound from, say, 1975 leans quite heavily on distorting the speakers themselves. So that's why they have a lower wattage, because the lower wattage doesn't mean they're quieter, it just means they distort earlier. So it's just so that's why when we had 3 cabs, we had one with 25 watt speakers in it, one with 50 watt speakers in it, and one with 100 watt speakers in it. So if you want cleans, then you use the higher watt speakers. You know.
And what was that little amp we talked about earlier? What was that
I have
tiny
a
little
amp that I love, 1957 Watkins Westminster, little red one.
The little growler.
Which is just such a gnarly little, so quite often, big 4x12 sounds can be quite wide, lots of bottom, aggressive highs. And the thing with that amp is it's just such a gnarly middle. It's like, and so you have like say a high watt and a Marshall, and it's all this big stuff, and then you just put in that, and it really only does one thing. You can, with the right guitar, get it to do a kind of nice tremolo clean thing, sort of.
Yeah.
But what it really wants to do is just turn it up, and it's this really aggressive ball that just fills in that 4x12 thing. And the effect of that in the speakers is the sound just coming forward.
Yeah.
And you solo it, and it's quite nasty. It's not like you wouldn't necessarily use just that kind of thing. But as part of the thing, and because it's a quiet amp, you can use lovely, like old ribbon mics, like a Coles or something like that just have so much tone and are brilliant. You can just put them up quite close and use a bit of the proximity effect, and it just thickens it out. It's lovely.
You've got such a beautiful array of mics. I mean, your mic collection is quite incredible, isn't it? Well, even also.
Once combined with the Rockfield collection, then it works. Yeah.
So
the Rockfield has really amazing old mics. Yeah. I mean, the 67s at Rockfield sound fantastic. The SM2s, which is a stereo Neumann mic for acoustics, really beautiful.
That
really,
brings
really
me
beautiful.
nicely onto the acoustics, because I remember we recorded with a McElroy. Do you remember that acoustic guitar?
I do.
Brought
Yeah.
down?
Yeah.
And you were like, that's one of the nicest sounding.
Yeah.
So do you have any preference for how you record acoustic guitars? Because I know that listeners would probably be quite interested in.
They're all so different. There's really no substitute to getting. Just put the mic somewhere near the acoustic. Go into the control room, get the level roughly right, and then just go back out, put on a pair of headphones, and just move the mic around the guitar and find where it sounds good. Because you can have 5 Gibson Hummingbirds, and they'll all have a different sweet spot. Do you know what I mean? So I would say typically I do use 2. Typically I have a large diaphragm condenser that I'll do that with. Move it around, find a spot, which is quite often sort of above the hole, about a foot back, kind of looking down. It's quite often there, but it's sometimes not, And then typically I'll put in like something like a KM84, a small diaphragm condenser, close to that, but pointing at the 12th fret.
Yeah, always.
And that will give you the string definition, and the body comes from the other way. But again, you've got to be careful with phase. You've got to be careful with timing. So you do the same thing. Just get the guy to just hit the guitar, and then just make sure that they're lined up, which they won't be. So you need to put another little micro delay, and then you've got, sometimes you push up the KM84, it gets less bright because of the phase relationship. So if you're unsure with phase, one mic's often better.
Wow.
But if you're confident that you're doing the right thing, then introduce another mic and you might get another tone.
Beautiful. And Rockfield has always been, that's your home, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I went there and the first band I produced there was a band called Headswim in 1993. And I'd literally just read the name in the studio on the back of a lot of my favourite records, and it was like, wow, Rockfield, And as
insane records.
Yeah, I mean, it's Queen, Night of the Opera, it's Rhapsody of Christ, it's Black Sabbath 4, it's Echo and the Bunnymen, it's the Stone Roses' Second Coming. Well, they were making when I first went there.
Coldplay,
Yellow,
Oasis.
What's the Story? Morning Glory. Recently,
there was a
Royal Blood. Royal Blood did the record there.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I mean, they're still making #1 records. Yeah. From 1962, it was the world's first residential studio. Kingsley, the genius that owns it, came up with the idea of a residential studio. And he was the chief engineer there for many years. He engineered Hawkwind, like Valium 10 and. Silver Machine. That was Kingsley. It's mad.
I actually just jumping back, you just reminded me. I was
Rush
watching
Farewell to Kings as well.
Yeah, God. I was watching that documentary Supersonic. And in the room that we were recording. I think it was Love Like Stars or something. It's amazing.
We did a bunch of it in there.
Yeah. Three different sessions it was in the end. And so what about now? Are you because obviously you've got Davyland where
so I got my mix room
Yeah.
that I built.
You do a lot of mixing for other artists, don't you,
Yes.
as well as the production side of things.
So I've been pushing that because the work-life balance aspect of that is really good. I mean, I love mixing other people's stuff anyway. It's great, and I think you can have a wider range of music that you're known for as a mixer than you can as a producer, maybe.
Yeah.
So I still love going away and recording bands, of course. That's always going to be where probably the most fun is, because there's so much interaction and team and all of that. But I also do really enjoy the commute of walking across my garden. And the thing of if you're super inspired, you can work on till 2 a.m, or if you're not feeling it, you can go and have dinner with the family, watch an episode of The Handmaid's Tale. And then I fancy going back out. That aspect of things is really good. So I mean, I suppose in the last few years it has been mostly Rockfield and Davyland, really.
It's amazing,
which is a lovely combination.
So
just as I'm starting to really annoy my wife, I go away to Rockfield. She forgets that I'm annoying, and then I come home.
you got it. I mean, I'm a massive Who fan, and in fact, the first record I can actually remember hearing was Pinball Wizard.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
My dad's a huge Who fan.
Yeah.
So what was it like working with such a legend like Roger?
Well, I mean, Roger first. I mean, it's daunting. Wilko I had met before, and so we'd had some time to set up the band and all of that. And Wilko's such an amazing bloke. He's really an intellectual. I used to teach before Dr. Feelgood in the early 70s. He was a English literature A-level teacher.
Wow.
He's bilingual in French, but he's also just rock and roll as
Yeah.
so it's this amazing combination of dude that's seen things and done things that you just can't imagine. But also like this incredible intellect kind of thing. So I was super comfortable, and and then it was like, well, Roger's coming down today to have a listen, and I was definitely like, right, here we go. This is, and he walked in, and I think I said, we'll get out of the way. I'm a big fan, and that was not the right thing to say. He's got lots of fans. He doesn't need fans. How does it sound?
Yeah.
And so I think after that misstep, I fell in, and he really liked the way it sounded, so it was good, and we struck up quite a good, what I like to think is a good relationship. I think I get on really well with Roger, and he's amazing singer.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
On that, I mean, obviously, but I was still shocked on that record. The number of voices, the way he approaches a song is like an actor, because he's done a lot of acting, and he sees songs often in 3 acts, with very much with a beginning and middle and end, and he has to inhabit he has to find the voice and the character for the song, because he spent so many years interpreting Pete's lyrics that are so wide ranging, obviously. That it was incredible watching him. He would be unsure about a certain song from Wilko, and then he'd just find the voice, and then it'd just be there like that. And I mean, the things he did in terms of phrasing were so extraordinary. There were times when I was reaching for the stop button because it was clear that he'd made a mistake, and then he'd just land on the beat in just an incredible way. And he'd be, oh my God, it was like an acrobat. It was impressive.
It was just amazing as a friend to getting on the tube and seeing the posters and knowing that you were behind that record.
Yeah, and I mean, it was we made it super quick. Wilko was dying. He had pancreatic cancer, and so we did all the music in 5 days and all the vocals in 3 days, and that was it. Bang, we've got to get it out before Wilko dies, and then he didn't.
It's amazing.
Yeah, great.
And so
story of rock and roll redemption.
Yeah. So tell us what you've got at the moment. Have you got any new exciting projects or bands?
Well, yeah, I came to this last few years since that Wilko and Roger record. There's been a period of working with these amazing classic artists, which has been a privilege and a joy. So we did Wilko and Roger record, and then we did the Roger record, which took 4 years. So we've got an amazing solo record with Roger Daultrey, soul, really interesting soul covers, but like with a really sort of ballsy British take on it. And that led to The Who, and then that led to 2 albums with Proclaimers, which I absolutely love. And then I was doing the Manic's 13th album last autumn, and I was sitting there, and I thought, oh God, these are my youngest band. It's just a band on their 13th album, and they're my youngest band at the moment. So I definitely had a moment where I thought, right, I've got to just get back to basics and find some cool young stuff to do. So I've sort of finished all of this stuff recently, and so now I'm lining up a bunch of younger of bands at the beginning. You know,
we did the Xcerts last album.
During that period I did the Xcerts last album. I actually done 3 albums for the Xcerts now. They're close friends, and I absolutely love them. And that last record is astounding. The quality of the songwriting and the singing is just off the scale. Just off the scale. Just if you ever get a chance to see the Xcerts live, go and see the Xcerts live, because it takes your head off. It's fucking brilliant.
We'll put a link into there.
That'd be brilliant.
We'll put a bunch of links into the.
That'd be great. So I'm going down to Rockfield Route soon with a young singer-songwriter called Daniel Alexander, who I think is brilliant. Really cool working class kid with something to say politically. He seems to be as angry as I think young people should be at this moment in history, but they don't seem to be. So that it's kind of quite soundscapey, and it's a bit Radiohead, a bit of an electronic thing as well. But I think it's going to be like live strings, and hopefully it's going to be really cool. So looking forward to doing that, and I'm doing a bunch of mixing at the moment.
Dave, thank you so much for coming in today.
Not at all.
I've got to say,
Pleasure.
it is just. It was amazing working with you, but it's amazing just seeing how successful you've been over the last,
That's amazing seeing what you've built up here. It's absolutely fantastic.
Mate, thanks so much for coming in.
No worries.
If you want any more information on Dave Eringa, if you've got any questions for Dave, then definitely post them in comments below. We'll put a bunch of links to the Xcerts and a bunch of the other bands that Dave's been working on. So for more information on the finest hand-built luthier instruments or any more talking guitars, then please do get in touch. Thanks.